Is now the right time to sell your business? We had a speaker call last week, and we have a great panel of speakers lined up. That really what we want to also cover is, and I know we've talked a lot about succession planning, but really how to prepare your business for sale, right? And you're going to hear some great ideas, whether or not investors look at your business. What do you need to do in order to prepare it? So I'm going to quickly go around and introduce each one, and then if they can just say hello to the group, where you represent, and then we're going to kick it off with one of our board members, Cindy Meyer from Ridgewood Moving, who owns her own business company, or I'm sorry, her own moving company. And once she kind of tees up the topic, then we'll go to Mike LaForge, and then we'll go to Alan, and then Franco, and then we'll open it up to questions. So again, Cindy, if you wanted to start and introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Cindy Meyer. I'm the owner of Ridgewood Moving Services. We provide local and long distance, commercial and residential moving and storage, and we move people's lives.
Thank you. Mike?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike LaForge. I'm with Sobel & Company. We are a CPA firm located in Livingston. We've been around for about 56 years, and our business and consulting practice is focused on closely held businesses, basically in the tri-state area.
Thank you, Mike. Alan?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I am Alan Scharfstein. I'm CEO of the Dac Group, and the Dac Group is a merger and acquisition firm focusing on helping middle market businesses figure out if they want to sell, if they want to grow through acquisition, if they want to find a strategic partner. And we help businesses navigate through those choppy waters of figuring out all those answers.
Thank you, Alan. And finally, Franco.
Good morning. I'm Franco Pietrofessa. I'm a partner at Archer & Griner, which is a law firm based in New Jersey, but we're regional, covering New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and even Houston, Texas. I'm in the M&A group and the business counseling group, and we handle a lot of buying and selling of businesses for the companies in the lower middle market.
Thank you, Franco. So Cindy, if you could just maybe spend a couple of minutes just sharing your views on the state of the economy, your business, your thoughts, concerns, how you prep your company, it'd be appreciated. Thanks, Cindy.
Sure. Well, actually, my theme today is really going to be being proactive and being prepared. The moving industry has been on fire the last couple of years. And what I say as a owner of a moving company, what I say to my customers is it's never too early to be prepared, whether you're moving today, tomorrow, or 5 years down the road. Start preparing for your move. And as a business owner, I say the same thing. I say it's never too early to start preparing for succession planning and strategy for exit plan. And that holds true whether it's a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road. So one of the things that I did a couple of years ago was create a succession plan. I created a succession plan, which was basically a list of all my key people. And that was whether it was my business, like in my business, my key people, my operations director, financial person, and all our vendors. So our accountant and suppliers and all of that. And then I also added my personal relationships for my girls, for my family, for the what if something happens to me tomorrow? How am I setting the business up to continue without me? And so that succession plan and that key document has been provided to the key people in my life. And with that said, I also updated my will because as many of you know, I lost my husband 17 years ago. So he was 47 when he passed away. And then we were just in a meeting yesterday, and one of our colleagues was talking about losing his parents. He lost both his parents. They were only 66. So I think that, being proactive and preparing for all of that is just as important as, you know, important part of your exit strategy. So with my will, I had done a will maybe 10, 12 years ago, but things have changed, relationships changed. So I had to, you know, look at it with a fresh new set of eyes. And I updated it and put things in place so that I felt that my girls would be in good hands, but also my business, because who I have an executor for my own personal is not necessarily who I want to run my business. As a matter of fact, who I'd want to look over my business happens to be one of my closest friends, and she's a successful business owner herself. And along with the key people that I have, giving them decision-making responsibilities. And then another important thing that I've been doing and working on is the process manual. A process manual was important because when I took over the business 17 years ago, there were no processes in place. So as the years have evolved, we created a process manual, but as you all know, the world went upside down a couple of years ago, and a lot of the processes had to change. We went virtual in a lot of things. We added software. So I ended up changing the name from process manual to the playbook. And the playbook is something that it's a team building exercise for everybody that works for me. And we just create the plays that go on in the company. And I move the needle by having them work on it every week. We have a new process in place, and we just add to that manual. And I will tell you, my team gets buy-in from it. They exchange ideas, and I think that's a very important part of the whole succession. Whether I'm going to open another Ridgewood Moving in Connecticut, I could hand over that playbook, or if somebody has to take over. It's been very important. And then, you know, the questions that I ask myself are, what do I do that no one else does? And I said, not much. But that's an important question to ask also, because if there's some things that I do that no one else does, are the things that I do, are the people that work for me, are they trainable? So in a lot of cases, yes, they are. So if I want to take a month or 2 months off, am I able to do that? Yes. I've created a dream team so that if I do want to step back a little bit or take 2 weeks off or a month, I can do that. So that's part of my foundation for planning for the future. And I look forward to hearing from the experts of what else I need to be doing.
Well, thank you, Cindy. All right, now for our member experts. So let's start at the rooftop, Mike, you know, in terms of, you know, from your perspective, from where you sit. I mean, everybody watches the news, the interest rates are going up. I've heard this from a lot of members over the last year and a half, that there's so much capital on the sideline. You know, people want to, you know, they're in buying mode, but what do you think, you know, from the rooftop, what do you see as far as is now the right time to sell your business?
I think, you know, we've had some opportunities that we've assisted clients with over the last few months where the timing was right, and it was particularly on point because of things such as interest rates. The multiples on a particular industry were just phenomenal, something that we never expected. I mean, you have a certain business that's getting 20 some odd times, which is what they got. The time was right, and it was certainly worthwhile. You know, you can look at all kinds of indicators that are in the marketplace, and I think they all come into play. But I also think, you know, timing has to do with the individual, whether or not they're both psychologically prepared for it, financially they're prepared for it, their family and their employees, things are in place and prepared for it. So, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into timing, and a lot of factors that influence. You know, there's no best time that's going to fit everybody's schedule. So, you know, like I said, depends on the industry and who's out there knocking on your door. Who's knocking on your door. But one of the things that, talking about timing and that type of stuff, one of the things that is very difficult to do is to simply flip the switch and wake up one morning and say, gee whiz, I think I'm going to sell my company tomorrow. It's not like you're selling a car. It's not like you're selling a stock. It's not like in some cases, it's not even like you're selling a house, because, a house, you really have to figure out is, where am I going to live after that? And so on. But, doing this whole thing with the business is a totally different type of thing. I just want to use, I don't want to say a case study, but just an example. I've had a client that came to the firm somewhere early 1990s, a local business. And, Rob was a young guy at the time. He's still young. He's probably just hitting 50. And, one of the things that we talked about years ago was, where's this business going? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to, he purchased the business. So the thing was, is that he's just going to take this business the way it was and the way you have right now and purchase it and go on. And he decided that, no, that wasn't what he wanted to do. He wanted to grow the business, get it to a point where it was a real powerhouse in the industry, and where he could make a nice catch as far as a sale is concerned. But one of the things that he had to do, and Cindy referred to a dream team. Rob never would have been able to take his business to the level that it's at right now without going out and hiring good people, and good people to work it. I remember way back when I was 26, 27 years old, I was sitting with wasn't a client at the time, they are a client now, and the individual has passed away. But I asked him, I said, what was the success? What have you been doing? I know you're a worker. I know you work 24/7. You're hustling this, that, and the other. He says, well, that's part of it. He goes, but you know what? I got to hire good people. If I don't hire good people that know more about what's going on than I do, I'm at a disadvantage. I need somebody who's going to elevate what I do and what my firm does. And of course, he's done 2 transactions since then. But going back to what I was saying before, you just can't wake up one day and say, listen, it's time to sell my business. I think what happens there is you have to sort of take a vision, you have to take an approach, probably at least 18 months in advance to do certain things and to come to certain conclusions. And I just want to talk about some of the things. I got this list of 10 items, 10 items to look forward to, just having to do with something as simple as your balance sheet. So again, I'm a business owner. I started the business. I'm doing things. I've got side deals with customers. I'm a little lenient with collections. I'm this, I'm that. I'm doing all these things that, your normal entrepreneur type hustler would do to keep the business going. Got to change some of those things. You still got to hustle, but you got to change some of those things. So like, for instance, number 1 on my list, accounts receivable. You have to look at your accounts receivable and make sure that, there's the terms are right. Don't forget, something, all these customers, a buyer 18 months down the road is not, they're going to want to have a comfort level and a confidence level that your receivables are good, they're collectible. There's a process in place to not only sell your goods or services, but then also collect. So I think what you need to do is you really need to tighten up on things as far as, possibly special terms, how lenient you are as far as collection issues and that type of stuff. So that's one of the first things you have to do as far as cleaning up the balance sheet. Another area is inventory. You have a lot of situations where, the business sellers, they have this old obsolete inventory that might still be sitting on the books. Get rid of it, get it off the books, put saleable stuff on there, make sure that you can show a buyer, again, 18 months down the road, that you got good adequate terms in your inventory to make it very, very attractive to them. Look into being a little bit more lean on some of this stuff as far as just-in-time delivery to bring down your inventory levels, because as I think Franco's going to get into a little bit later, once you start getting into some of these sales details with working capital, you do want to reduce the amount of working capital that your business is functioning with, so that you don't have to leave as much in the business when you sell. The other thing is that I mentioned old inventory that's on your books, get it off, cleaned up. The other part about it is, and Alan knows what I'm talking about here, we've had situations where people have inventory, but it's not on the books, okay? For tax reasons, okay? It's not on the books. So I think you have to do an examination there and say to yourself, is there something that needs to be added to inventory, whether it's supply types, whether it's, extra inventory just for a rainy day and that type of stuff, because again, it does impact what that balance sheet is going to look at time of sale. I talked about, becoming more lean. That's the third item on my list. Again, what I'm saying here is that the more working capital that you've worked with over the last 12 months, or if you've had on your books, that's more working capital that you're going to have to hand over to a buyer. So if you can get a little bit more lean in what you're carrying in receivables, a little bit more lean in what your inventory levels are, possibly you can take more cash out of the business at time to sell. We have clients that have all kinds of little nuggets on their balance sheets. Employee loans, all right? Get rid of them if you can. Collect them, take them over, get them off your balance sheet. No buyer is going to want employee loans, and no buyer is going to want any loans that are received from officers or family members. So you want to get those things cleaned up. Get them off your balance sheet, take care of them. Item 5, fixed assets. How many clients do we have that have a car on the business? Oh, how about 2 cars? How about 3 or 4 or 5 cars? How about the entire family, the fleet? Again, that's something that you might want to address sooner rather than later. If these are non-operating assets that you have on the books, probably a good idea to start getting them off and cleaning up your fixed asset ledgers. Accounts payable. Interestingly enough, how you pay your vendors going into your deal is going to be a reflection on how you operate your business. So you probably want to make sure that you're taking care of your vendors, taking care of them, paying on time, taking advantage of discounts. Non-business assets. People do have non-business assets on their books. Whether it's collectibles, whether it's let's say life insurance that was purchased not necessarily to fund the business. See if you can get those type of things taken care of and squared away. And again, you'd want to do this at least 12 months before you're going to start putting the business out there for sellers. There might be things that you have undocumented items, accruals or payables or things like that. Make sure that you can support all the assets, all the liabilities that are on your balance sheet, so that again, when the buyer comes in, you have a clear idea as to what's happening. I have one client right now. It's amazing. It's a new client. I get on there and the first thing I said is, "What's this $500,000 asset that you have on the books?" "Oh, I lent it to one of my suppliers." I said, "You lent $500,000 to a supplier?" "Yes, I was afraid he would go out of business." Well, the asset's still on the books. The supplier is someone who was located in Italy. And the last time I spoke with him, he hasn't talked to the guy in 2 years. So I'm not so certain that thing belongs on the books. Now, how he's going to treat it for tax purposes and all the other kind of stuff, that's another issue. But again, nobody's going to want to see that on books. So again, those are the types of things that you need to clear up. Interestingly enough, I think that Alan will back me on this one. There is such a thing as running and having too much cash in business, and having excess cash again in the period of time leading up to a sale. We don't want the buyer to get the impression that you need $2 million worth of cash when you only need $200,000. So again, I think you need to do a better job managing your cash and pulling out the excess cash as appropriate. Now, of course, if there's, if you're going to sell the business, in all likelihood, it's going to be a cash and debt-free type of thing. So you may want to at least have a game plan as to how you're going to, make sure that the debt structure and that type of stuff is in the right spot at that point. So that was basically my top 10 items as far as doing some things in advance. And like I said, some of the stuff might not be consistent with what you do. I can't tell you how many times I hear from our clients, "Gee whiz, that's just not how we do it. That's not how it's been. That's not what has made us successful." And I hear you. I said, but I also tell you that you have to understand that a buyer, may have their own ways. A buyer is going to be more corporate orientated. It's going to be more, looking towards, process and repeatable types of things within the business, so that it can run at its peak.
Tony, I just wanted to add something.
Sure.
Mike, you make such a great point with the balance sheet and creating a healthy balance sheet. And we talked about Dream Team Internal. it's just as important to create the, surround yourself with good people as a business owner to be your advisors. And one of the things I didn't mention is that's been a key factor with me over the past, I'm going to say, 5 or 6 years of having my financial advisor, my accountant, CFO, business strategist, and attorney to work on my behalf as well as the business. So creating an external dream team as a resource also is an important element.
Thank you, Cindy, and thanks, Mike. Alan, what are your thoughts on everything we talked about so far?
Yeah, well, there's a lot on the table, but let me start with a little bit of the big picture here in terms of one of the original questions you asked Tony about, what's the market like today in terms of M&A market. And I think over the last couple of years, we've probably seen the hottest M&A market that we've ever seen. Multiples are really high. There are lots of buyers out there. And if we really look at what's driving the market, it's basically three things. We have strategic buyers who are having trouble growing their business organically, so they're looking to grow through acquisition. We have the private equity firms that everybody has heard so much about, who have billions of dollars, trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines looking to acquire businesses and being pretty aggressive about it. And the third part is we have the non-US buyers. Probably a third of our transactions are with buyers from outside the United States who want to enter this marketplace and specifically want to be in the Northeast, in the market that we're in. So it's been a really, really hot market. And surprisingly enough, with all the stuff that's going on with the interest rate rises and the various other things going on in our economy, we've really not seen it slow down in any material way. It continues to be very, very, very hot. The second thing that I think it's important for everybody to think about, and I think Cindy did a great job of teeing this up, is really you need to think about how you're going to, what your exit strategy is. And the advice I typically give business owners is you have to run your business like you're going to own it forever, but you have to be prepared to sell it tomorrow. And the reason I say that is there are so many business owners who we represent who had no intention of selling their businesses, at least no intention of selling it now, but have had a knock on the door, have had a competitor, a strategic buyer, a private equity firm approach them with valuations that really are surprisingly high. And as a result of that, you need to be prepared for that. And what Mike started to lay out when he talked about his 10 points were the fact that there are things you should be doing today to get your business ready for sale. And even if you're not thinking of selling it tomorrow, get these things done and get them ready. We have a publication that we put out that has the 12 critical steps to getting your business ready for sale. And by the way, if anybody wants that, just email me after this. I'm happy to get that in your hands. But if you really think about it, what you want to do is you want to look at your business the way a buyer would. When a buyer does their diligence on your business, what are they going to think about? How are they going to view it? What are they going to think about as the big pluses of your business? And what are going to be drawbacks to them? So let's just take a look at a couple of those and just see how they are. Mike talked a lot about the balance sheet and your inventory and getting that in line. And that's all true. You got to do that. Cindy talked about the fact that you got to build a team around you that can support the business, both from as an outside advisors in terms of getting your A team ready and prepared, but also be prepared to operate the business without you. And what does that look like? But you also need to think about, what concerns buyers. So what else will concern them? Gee, do you have a real customer concentration? Do you have a supplier concentration? What are the risks of your business? What's the most valuable thing that likely a buyer is going to look at in your business they're acquiring? And by the way, it's not your assets. It typically is your employees. And those employees are critical. So what's going to happen to your employees if the business is sold? Do you have non-compete agreements with key salespeople? Do you have non-solicitation agreements with key operating people? And these things are really tough to get in place on the eve of a closing. They really are. But can you do it ahead of time? Can you do these things when you're giving out bonuses? Can you do these things when you're promoting people? Yes, you can. And so if you think about these types of items well in advance, of your transaction. It's really, really helpful. And the other point I just make about businesses is that one of the mistakes that many business owners make when they think about selling their business is that business owners think that people buy your history, they buy your earnings, they buy your EBITDA, they buy what you've done in the past. And to some extent that's true, but what they're really paying for is the future of your business. So you need to not only be able to support your financial statements historically and the like, you need to have a plan for the future, where this business is going, where it's going to grow, what its future looks like, what your forecasts look like. And so you should be working with your advisors. Hopefully you have a M&A firm or investment banking firm sitting by your side also helping to advise you, so that you start to get these various building blocks in place. And if you get these various building blocks in place, our experience is that it materially increases the value of your business. So, those are just touching on some of the big points that are there. And I'll just make one other issue for business owners. One of the things that we're seeing out there in the marketplace today is that the age of selling business owners is getting younger and younger. It used to be that our typical seller was 67 years old, no kids going into the business, no succession plan. Let me sell before I move to Florida or die, one of the two. The typical seller today is actually in their 50s, many in their 40s. I mean, and what is it? It is that business owners are taking advantage of A, the very hot market that exists out there today, and B, you don't have to sell all your business if you don't want to. Many business owners are finding private equity firms as partners to help them grow the business. They get to take money off the table, but they get to grow the business at the same time. They get a second bite at the apple when the private equity firm exits down the road. So that as business owners, you have the choice of growing your business through acquisition, continuing to operate it the way you are right now, to bring in a partner who can help fund expansion and allow you to take money off the table, or sell the business. All of those are real options. And as a result, it is a really vibrant market because there's just more options for buyers and more options for sellers than we've ever had before.
Thank you, Alan. Great information. Okay, finally, batting cleanup is the attorney on the panel, Franco Pietrofest. Franco, any thoughts? Oh, let me just unmute yourself, Franco. Sorry.
All right, I'm not sure how that
There you
happened.
go.
Okay, so Cindy, I think you're doing everything right with regard to your exit strategy. You need to plan, all business owners need to plan for a transition to their successors. A lot of times they want it to be their family members, but for one reason or another, that usually doesn't happen. You look at the statistics, family-owned and closely held businesses, only less than a third of them get down to the second generation. And even fewer of them get down to the third generation. And there are reasons. And if you think about it, like my father had a business, he worked like a dog. And he didn't want me in that business. He wanted me to be a professional. So I went, studied accounting and I went to law school. The second generation doesn't see how their parents work and they don't want any part of it, even though the money may be very good. So you plan for your transition. You have to have an owner's agreement if you have partners, because death, disability, somebody who's stopping work, stopping to contribute money or services, you need to address all that in an agreement. If you don't have an agreement, you have litigation, and nobody wants that. And then, as Mike and Al said, you always have to plan and prepare for a sale, because even if it's 3, 5, 10 years down the road, you need to be ready. And you never know, as Alan said, who's going to knock on your door. I had a client about 5 years ago. He was in the plumbing wholesale distribution business in Middlesex County, and he had a very good business. He was in his 60s. He really wasn't planning on selling. He had a younger partner who he thought was going to take over the company and buy him out. He got somebody knocked on his door, one of the big national wholesale distributing companies. They had a facility in Northern Jersey. They had a facility in Southern Jersey. They didn't have anything in Central Jersey. Their offer was just so good. There's no way he could have turned it down, and he sold the company, and he really cashed out. And he was lucky because he had a good accountant. He had me, and his books and records, his balance sheet, everything was pretty good. There wasn't a heck of a lot to clean up, and that deal went pretty quickly. As far as the factors driving M&A, Alan hit on some of them. I'm shocked by how much money private equity firms have and how low they're going as far as buying companies. They're down to the lower middle market. So, 20, 30, $40 million, $50 million. I mean, those 10 years ago were small deals that they wouldn't even look at. Now they're interested because they have a lot of money. They need to spend it for their investors. Sometimes they're standalone companies. Sometimes they add on to the companies that they already have to roll them up, and someday selling a larger company to another buyer. I'd say at least half of my deals involve private equity, either in front or behind the scenes funding some buyer. If you do get involved in the selling of your company, have your attorney involved up front. Don't sign a term sheet or a letter of intent without having an attorney review it. Even though it's non-binding, there are things in there that can trip you up. So you want to address that early on. Alan and Mike talked about getting your balance sheet healthy. There's also a lot more housekeeping you can do. You need to clean up your books and records, your corporate minute book, file your taxes and pay taxes in all the states where you're supposed to. Alan said lock in your employees with restricted covenants. Get all your contracts together. I can't tell you how many times clients can't find fully executed contracts. You should do it ahead of time. But I just want to focus on one more thing. Every company has skeletons in the closet. If you have a sophisticated buyer, they're going to find out about your skeletons. So you need to deal with them before you plan on selling your company. And what do I mean by skeletons in the closet? Well, Mike mentioned it. Inventory that's not on your financial statements, or low valuations of inventory because you want to save money on taxes. No buyer is going to buy your company and inherit that issue. You got to deal with it. Cash method versus accrual method of accounting. If you're required by the tax code to use accrual method and you haven't been doing it, you're going to have to deal with that prior to the closing and pay taxes on it. I can't tell you how many times clients make sales in other states but don't collect sales taxes and remit them. It's going to be corrected, and buyer's going to go back a few years and deal with that, and you're going to have to pay taxes. Failure to register business in other states, misclassifying employees as independent contractors. All of this stuff is good and fine for you as a small businessman or woman because you're dealing with the risks. But no buyer is going to buy a company with all of that going on. And if you fix it ahead of time, you're so much better off because you'll inspire buyers that you're with confidence that you know what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just going to have to deal with all of it and take a big tax hit right before the closing. I could go on, Tony, but I'll leave it there. Now you're muted.
Sorry, did it to myself. Thank you, Franco. But we could open it up to questions. But I guess my first question is, you know, you guys have been around long enough. Have you noticed that the pandemic just changed the mindset of these kind of deals, like either in a positive way and negative way, where deals are happening faster, sooner? You know, Alan, to your point, you know, younger.
I'll tell you, Tony, the amazing thing to me is that deals continue to get done through the pandemic at an amazing pace. We've done, you know, deals that are very significant where the buyer and seller were never, ever in the same room. I mean, that's something that amazes me because so much of this is the cultural aspect of fitting two companies together. But people have figured out how to deal with that and how to overcome it. You know, clearly there are companies that are beneficiaries of the pandemic. There are those that have suffered dramatically because of it. But interestingly enough, if you look at the deal flow that occurred throughout the pandemic, it really did not slow other than for a couple of months at the very beginning.
Yeah, I had the experience. I can't remember the exact date, but in my mind, the world ended the day they kicked everybody out of that arena down in Arizona for one of the basketball games, and there was just a cascade after that. But we were supposed to close on a deal the following Wednesday, and of course that didn't happen. So that whole deal fell apart, and it had to be resurrected with a separate buyer later on. I haven't seen, and again, I'm not in it 24/7 like Alan and Franco are as far as deal after deal after deal. Mine are you know, in between, you know, our normal client service and working that way. But I haven't seen any slippage or any slowdown because of the pandemic. I think in some cases clients have come out of it stronger, more certain in what they can do and how they can face challenges. And I think it's actually made a lot of our clients and a lot of potential sellers now, you know, much stronger. You know, to be honest with you, they're also financially, many are very financially well off because of PPP. You know, we can't brush that under the table. That, you know, that was a big boost to keep people employed. But I think there was also a lot of extra that came through the pipelines for these companies that the ones that reinvested it, they're just in a much stronger position right now.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Yeah. Frank or Cindy, any thoughts?
Well, I agree. I mean, I think in March of 2020, you know, we had a couple of deals and people were a little concerned. They didn't know what was going on. But all of those deals ended up closing, maybe at a little bit of a discount, but they closed. But I've got to tell you, I've been doing this a long time. I've never been busier in M&A work in the last 2 years. It's just unbelievable, the volume. And I think it's because there's a lot of money and a lot of opportunities and people are buying and selling.
Cindy, how about your perspective? Pre-pandemic, post-pandemic?
Yeah, and Tracy, feel free to add to this. The moving industry space, you know, as I said earlier, it's been so busy and so robust for many, and then others just weren't able to succeed. So we have seen a lot of acquisitions, you know, within the nation, and you have a lot of the generation like me, who's still holding strong, but you know, we're seeing our colleagues selling. We have several businesses here in Jersey that have sold. Tracy, add to that with the national platform.
Yeah, that is the concern. Well, since COVID, movers have been busier than ever. COVID was very good to moving companies to our industry. Nationwide, though, the state associations are hearing from their members. The main concern is the labor and businesses that are selling and selling either to the younger generation or just brand new people coming in. But it's definitely the past year I have seen so many members selling their business.
Tracy is the executive director of the Movers Association in the state. And she's very involved on the national platform as well as I am. But I wanted to pivot for a second because Alan, kind of on the same conversation track, but one of my concerns that you made was buyers are buying for the future, and they're looking at your people. And although I do have an amazing team, many of my movers have been there well over a decade, and my team is aging. And to the point that Tracy just made, it's very, very hard to find people to bring in. So that's been on, that weighs on my mind of kind of my aging team movers and how to build that to attract, later on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's a great point. It should be a concern because, just whether you're selling your business or you're going to continue to own it, the question is, how do you address that issue? They're not two different issues. It's the same issue of how do you protect the value of your business, which is your big concern. The other thing I just sort of comment on, which I think is pretty interesting, is, going back to the question of the COVID effect that we've had, or a pandemic effect that we've had, is that we see a lot of businesses coming onto the market now, owners wanting to sell much earlier than they would have in the past. And I think some of that comes from just COVID exhaustion. All of us who have run a business through these last couple of years, even if our businesses have done well, it's like your business has, Cindy, I'm sure you've said it's been an exhausting time. It's just been draining. There are, whether it be the people issues or other issues, it's just been a strain on business owners. And many business owners are taking a look at how much they have in the bank, how much time they spend in a business. And many have relooked at their balance in their lives and have decided, maybe it's time to exit, and maybe exiting a little earlier than I planned isn't such a bad thing. And as a result of that, we talked about all the money coming into the market, all the buyers that are doing these deals. Well, for every buyer, there's got to be a seller. And why are those sellers coming into the market? And I think there are a lot of them who are just had enough. And even if their businesses are doing well, maybe we should look at our exit strategies.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alan. I think the other thing that I've seen, at least from people in planning over the last couple of years, is also the ability to communicate. Here we are sitting on this call right now. We've got, 20, 30, 40 people all assembled for conversation. Back in the day, several years ago, you couldn't do that. So if I wanted to relocate down to Florida, I really couldn't do it. I had to be flying back and forth on the normal routine was Monday morning and Thursday evening and that type of stuff. So what it's done is it's allowed these business owners to look towards sadly relocating some of their businesses now to other states. Let's say Florida. This is one of the things that I talked about with the client I was referring to before. And sadly, getting out of New Jersey, doing this whole thing where it's a four-sided tax plan so that they wouldn't be subject to New Jersey's higher taxes. So again, I mean, that, geographical location counts. Individuals now, they can run their business from afar. And that may not seem to be something that would cause people to sell their business, but it does give them the reason to take their business to a point where the people that they do leave behind are able to run it and are strong individuals to take care of the day-to-day stuff. So, I mean, it's just so different than it was a couple of years ago. And then the whole idea there is just got to keep on top of it. Now, you talk about finding adequate staff and so on. Again, and older staff. Well, where are the younger people? We got younger people in New Jersey, but I think in some cases, people are looking towards possibly moving businesses out of New Jersey because of the ability to hire and attract people, which again is all part of this whole bit about at the end of the day, what's the exit plan? Is it coming out of New Jersey or coming out of another state?
So we have about 10 more minutes left. Any questions from the attendees? Just if you want to use the chat box or unmute yourself.
Tony, I don't have a question. I have a comment. Being a business broker and working with business owners myself, I think Mike just brought up a good point that maybe we didn't even touch upon, which is, as you're preparing your business for sale, you got to envision yourself as an owner, not running that business in the future. And so how do you make the business successful to operate without you at the helm? Because buyers, it's all about mitigating risk. And a buyer who sees somebody who is so entrenched in running their business is going to be scared that, is that business going to be successful if, John or Cindy isn't at the helm running it afterwards. And so you also need to prepare yourself for how long this whole process takes. So, we're talking about preparing your balance sheet. Some of these things that we talk about can't be done overnight. So, Mike spoke about 18 months, we give our clients advice that it's 3 years that it takes to really prepare for good financial history. I know Alan talked about, buyers paying for a future. Our advice we give clients is that they pay for performance. But they buy because of the potential. So having a plan is good to have in place, but you might not see that convert into hard dollars at closing because it's not in your performance. If you had, tapped that potential and put it into your performance, you might get more for it, but it'll make it an attractive business to buy. But so you talk about 3 years to get prepared, and then it can take between, at minimum 9 to 12 months to actually sell the business once you have it listed for sale. And then if you're very involved in the business, the new buyer might want you to stay on for an extended period of time to help run the business, right? So this isn't something that you can just, wake up, and a lot of people do, quite honestly. They get, I think COVID fatigue is real, and they're done. They're just done trying to, manage and run and operate. And they haven't done all of these things to really maximize the value. And that's okay. We can still help sell. I'm sure Alan can still help sell, but you might not get as much for it as if you had really taken the time to prepare. And I think that's an important message.
Cheryl, that's a really good point. One of the things we didn't talk about was marketing when you have a business such as Ridgewood Moving to separate me, not make the Ridgewood Moving all about me. It's, stand on its own Ridgewood Moving. Being a woman owned, that has been a face of the company, and I have been aware of that. But I have made conscious efforts to make sure that Ridgewood Moving is standing alone, so that if I did step back, I'm not the only one that's being identified with the company. And that takes years to prepare for that.
Right. And just generally speaking, what we say is buyers detest red flags, right? So what are the red flags? Like, take care of any employee issues that you've got, don't, and like the 10 balance sheet things, Mike, look, I'm a former CPA. I call myself a recovering CPA. So I totally get what you're talking about from that perspective, but having your cars on the books as assets isn't as a critical thing as maybe taking cash out of the business, right? Make sure you're not overcapitalized, because that net working capital can work against you. And we didn't even get into like deal structures, like stock sale versus asset sale and net working capital, and how that comes into play on some of the larger transactions. Most of the transactions we do don't even involve net working capital. People just bring their own.
That could be a segment all on its own, just talking about some of those items, because the other thing that we didn't talk about, and again, when you only have an hour, it's difficult to touch all the bases, are also things like just the conduct of the day-to-day business from the standpoint of the P&L and then the EBITDA, and then add backs and adjusted and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of pieces to it, a lot of moving parts, and I guess that could be a topic for another day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cheryl. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? If not, how about a round of applause for all of our panelists? And then we're gonna hear from our sponsors. So thank you. Let's start with you, Cindy. I mean, I think you described your moving company, but is there anything else you want to say as a sponsor? And thank you.
Everybody gets basically what we do. One area I didn't talk about was the very important older communities that we service. That's a big part of our heartstrings is, you know, with the baby boomers, you've got like almost half the population kind of getting older. So I keep telling people I can relate to all the generations now because I have the kids in the 30s. I'm in that middle group, that sandwich. And then I have a mom that's 88, and we deal with a lot of that older population now that are going into the independent and, you know, different residents that you see popping up all over.
Right.
That's a special place.
Thank you.
Special service for us.
Thank you, Cindy. Anyone from Chase on? Chase Bank? If not, we want to thank them. Mike, anything you want to add about Sobel?
Sure.
Sally's there too. Hi, Sally.
I wanted to make sure I hear him.
Yeah.
Okay, now, hey, I'll tell you what, Sally, you probably know 90% of the thing on this thing. Why don't you make your voice heard?
Well, I've been listening very carefully. I was making notes and didn't want to look like I was distracted, which is why I took myself off. And I have like 10 pages of notes. So that says something right there. It starts with the way Cindy presented it, and then it cascaded down. The one word that came across to me was practical, realistic, and succinct. Sometimes you get a presentation like this and it's, you know, from the 30,000 foot level and conversation that's not actually going to happen, that people can't grab onto it. But I think each of you, and of course, Franco as well, Alan, who I've known forever, and Cindy, I get to sit on the board with, talked about if they were in that business or their client is in that business, how would they behave? And I think that's the important part of our sponsoring today. It's the important part of what Commerce and Industry brings to the business community, is a very practical, realistic approach to the way you can move forward under many, many different circumstances with a variety of advice given whatever the situation may demand. So we are a middle market CPA and consulting firm and work with many of you, and we appreciate as sponsors the kind of program and the quality that this presented. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sally. Franco Archer, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, like I said before, Archer is one of the larger firms in New Jersey with 175, 180 attorneys. We're a regional firm, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and we have a new office in Houston with a China practice. It's a full service firm. We've been around 85, 90 years. And we work with the middle market companies, individuals. We're really a full service firm.
Thank you, Franco. And then finally, Cheryl, Murphy Business Solutions.
Hi, yes, it's Murphy Business Sales. I'm in Madison, New Jersey. Murphy is a nationwide business brokerage firm. We've got hundreds of offices across the US and Canada. There are 7 offices in New Jersey. We specialize in helping Main Street business owners. And so we kind of cap out at 20 million. I cap out at 20 million in annual sales in helping companies confidentially package and market their business for sale and find new owners to come in and take over. We do have some brokers in our network, including our regional director, Russ Miller, who is certified by Murphy to do lower middle market. I personally am not, but we do have people in our team to do that. I ended last year as the number 11 broker in the country, and we specialize in all kinds of business transactions, from small franchise resales, hair salons, to much larger multi-million-dollar transactions. I sold a concrete block manufacturer last year. That was a multi-generational business that sold to another multi-generational family business. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'll be happy to talk and connect about the services we offer and what we can do to help.
Thank you, Cheryl. And we are on the hour, so that's perfect. 10 o'clock. So again, thanks to all of our sponsors and our speakers and all of you for taking an hour out of your day. If you